Do you want me to start from here?
You can, yeah, yeah.
And I'll move round. And
yeah. Perhaps you can tell us something about your art. What's for you very important with your paintings that you paint?
Well, there are many different kinds of work that I make. So it depends on the context. But to do with the club, the pictures that I do in dance clubs and about dance club culture, well, here's an example. They're really about catching the feeling of an event, as well as what it looks like, what it feels like to be there. That's why it's important that to get that feeling, I have to go there and work on site. These charcoal drawings, like the one here, like the ones here on the wall and the ones up there, were made live in dance clubs, mainly in Britain, except for that one, which was actually made here in Vienna at a Northern Soul event at Birdland. But I make the drawings by sticking them to the floor with tape. You can see on this one here, see where there's a margin around the edge? Well, that's where the edge of the tape holds it to the ground. So I often work on the floor, actually on the dance floor, and using the same kind of tools as I have here. I just take a little bag with me, I set up on the floor, and I start to look at the environment, and often I'll go there quite early on before there are many dancers and many people there. So I start to look at the space and get an understanding of the room in which the event is going to happen and the kind of lighting. And I might start to draw the space beforehand, so that I have a stage on which the action can take place. Then, as people come, I start to watch their dancing, and I will selectively start to put in figures. And it never works straight away. You always find you draw in a figure, and maybe the arm works, but the rest of the body doesn't work, or it's too big or it's too small in relation to the space. These are not photographic images, don't get me wrong. They don't have to work like a photograph does, you know, in terms of objective perspective, but they still have to be convincing. And so they do have some kind of rules regarding perspective and proportion, but they're not photographic rules. It's just about getting the image to work, which is why I work in charcoal, because it's very flexible, and I can easily erase and redraw a figure, and it's so immediate. The other part of the process is that I'm not somebody that's going and clinically observing an event. I'm taking part in it myself. I draw the dance event because I myself have a passion for music and dance, and the sort of way it brings people together socially, but also in a kind of weird spiritual way. You know, when you get into dancing, you really reach a zone after a certain time where you kind of you're a physical being, but you somehow become disconnected from yourself, and you're completely somewhere else. It's a great thing to do if you've got some problems or there are things you're worrying about. Go out dancing. You can lose it. You can get away from it for an hour. It is a kind of an escape, of course.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Please include the question somehow in your answer. You have a question?
No, yeah.
That's my question, yeah.
Which tradition do I see myself as a painter? Well, I think in a way I am an anachronism, because I am not all that interested in what's happening in contemporary art at the moment. I mean, some things a little bit, and I would like to be more in touch with what's going on now, but only because people would then think that I am going on now. Well, I am going on now, of course, but my subjects are contemporary. My work is all about modern life as I experience it. However, and this is what makes me an anachronism, something from the past perhaps, is that I use very traditional old-fashioned techniques, and there is an importance about drawing and drawing skills and looking and trying to make an image from what you see. But it's also true that I'm not just drawing what I see. When I go and draw or paint in a dance club situation, I am trying to absorb and express the atmosphere and the feeling of that event, not just the scientific or objective looking at the event, and I'm not simply making an objective image of that event. I'm not objective, I'm subjective. I am involved in that event. The reason why I am painting it is because of my involvement. I'm not a voyeur. I am taking part. I am a dancer. And when I work on these pictures in a club situation, I literally stick the paper to the floor. You can see the edges where I have stuck the image to the floor, and I am drawing the dance event as it unfolds from the very beginning, when I'm looking at the space itself and the way that the club organisers have lit it, this kind of thing. So I'm drawing an empty stage, and then as people come and people start to dance, I start to look selectively at certain figures and try to catch the way they move. Now, when I was living in London, I used to go to certain clubs regularly, like every week, not just Northern Soul, but all kinds of dance music clubs where the focus was on the music and there was something exciting and something a bit spiritual about the music. I used to go to jazz, well, I say used to, I still do when I can, but jazz fusion clubs, funk clubs, as well as soul clubs, sometimes house clubs, or there are a lot of clubs in London where you get a kind of hybrid of music between house, soul, broken beats, you know, where they mix modern with old. And I go to these places, and there are certain dancers that I've known for years from going out dancing, maybe 15 years. So when I see them dancing in a club, I'm not only drawing what I see on that night, I'm using my knowledge of having looked at them and known these people for many years and looked at them before. If somebody dances, of course they're moving, so it's like, how do you catch that in a static image? It's really difficult. But people repeat movements when they dance. Yeah? They do certain things and then they do them again. So if you can't get it the first time, you erase. This is why I use charcoal. It's easy to make an image. You think, oh my God, I've got that arm right, but the head's completely in the wrong place. And he's not standing on the floor properly. Oh, what am I going to do? But it doesn't matter. You just get a rag, you wipe the bit off that doesn't work, you redraw. And it's incredibly fluid and flexible, like the dancing itself. So people are repeating movements. So I see them do it again and again and again. And in the end, I can catch something of the personality of their dancing. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. And funny, people come by here and they look in the window and they say, but you're white. Why are you painting black people? Have you been to Africa? And for me, it's like kind of annoying and kind of missing the point. I don't see black people when I draw. I don't see white people. I see people. Now, I go to clubs where dancing is important. Sometimes those people are white, sometimes they're black, sometimes they're yellow or a mixture. It doesn't matter to me. But what does matter is looking at them and kind of making a connection with them and trying to get that down in an image. That's what it's about. I've got no axe to grind, you know, politically, or anything like that. It's about being a part of something. It's always a little bit of a problem for me in that the people who are important in the art world and make decisions about which art is important now and which art big collectors should be buying, these people would not be at all interested in what I'm doing. They would look at these images and say, why is this artist using techniques and drawing like as though he were living in the 1920s or 1930s? There are many artists that I'm interested in who were active in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, in the United States, in England, and also in Germany, who worked with a similar figurative approach. And I connect to them. I see them as my ancestor. I'm not connected with Damien Hirst or people like that. So that's why they would write me off, I think. And also, the images aren't talking to big collectors. They're not talking to big important people in society. Actually, I'm talking to my friends when I make images. I'm talking to the people whose life that those images are a part of. The people, I'm talking to the people that go to the clubs for whom those events are important. Of course, this makes a problem because these people are not art buyers. So selling work and making money from this work is not easy. This is not the only work that I do. I do a lot of commissioned projects in the UK for hospitals, charities. I do community and educational projects where I work collaboratively with students or... Okay. Mm-hmm. I call all of these paintings that are about club dancers and club culture, their collective name is Unstill Lives. A still life, as you know, is a painting of things that are not moving, usually on a tabletop, fruits, flowers, a vase. It can be anything actually, but the tradition is fruit, flowers, vases, or sometimes you might get a skull as a memento mori. These images are like the opposite of still lives. That's why I call them unstill lives, because they're about people in movement, people creating a scene and an image that's not silent and not still. But for me, it works on a lot of levels. This is a kind of a self-portrait of me dancing. When I was in London, I asked many of the dancers that I danced with in clubs over many years, I would ask them to come and model for me for single figure portraits. And this will be a bit different to the club images because we would not work in a club situation. They would come to my working space and we would play some music, improvise, and then I would try to find a pose that they could hold in a way that was still, actually. But it was a kind of still pose that summarised the way they move or the personality of their body. And they would work with me, not for so long because I couldn't afford to pay them. So usually the session would be a couple of hours, and they might be able to come back another day for another couple of hours. So I had to be very focused. I'd mix the colours while they were there, but I'd already have planned an idea about what kind of colour to use. Here's a good example. This is modelled by a dancer called Irvin Lewis, who's a black British guy, grew up in the north of England. He learned to dance in clubs, mainly black soul and jazz clubs in the north. But while he was doing that as a teenager, he attended the Northern Contemporary School of Dance. And parallel to the street dancing that he was learning, he learned classical dance and contemporary dance, and he created a new way of dancing that brought those different influences together. And when I painted him, I've watched him dance many times, both on the stage and in clubs. And we tried to find poses that were typical, almost like punctuation marks, like a full stop or a comma that shows how he would pause in between one move and another. So that's how that was made. So that a lot more planning, it's less improvisational, it's not thrown together in a club like that one is, for example, that was made live and just drawing from what I saw. It's a different process. But it's all part of this series of work called Unstill Lives. But when I work in this way, I call them action portraits. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Interviewed the main interview with all the other questions.
I have one question concerning the images.
Yeah.
Or is it possible to ask later?
Ja, dann ask now.
Okay. Dann
Ganz kurz.
yeah.
Darf ich dir was wegnehmen vom Bart?
What I forgot to say, it doesn't matter, but the reason I did a self-portrait of me dancing was because in Vienna I can't find any models to work with, So I thought, well, probably the best model that I could use is myself, because I will do exactly what I ask me to do, and I don't need to pay me. So I made that one, and I also made that one there. And one other which I sold to somebody here